Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Informa Law. It's part of the Routledge and Taylor and Francis group. So it's Informa Law from Routledge. This book is called Air Cargo Insurance. It's this book here. Let's have a look at it first of all. It's been written by two people, Malcolm A. Clark and George Louloudis. This is the book here. It's part of the Maritime and Transport Law Library. You can see that from the side. There's nothing on the back. The book itself is it's a hardback, royal blue colour. 150 odd pages. There's a nice index at the back, which is looking at paragraph numbering rather than page numbering. Very useful conclusion. It's only a short book, but it's quite an important one. Let's just go to the front. This is the actual library, the law library itself, the Maritime and Transport Law Library, which Informa have produced. A large number of books. Then this is the front page there. Then you've got some details. The book is available both as a book and as an e-book. That's the information about it. Then you've got the actual contents section there. There are a total of 6 chapters. And you can see there is paragraph numbering. So we start off with a prologue, which, in fact, it starts off, as we quote it later on, goods carried by air account for about 30% of world trade in terms of value. So you can see how important this subject matter is. Then you've got the table of cases, even more so probably with Brexit and all the problems that we're going to face. So after the table of cases, you've got tables of legislation, directives and conventions, all linked together, and then after that you've got abbreviations and acronyms. I think very important to know about that, because in this area there are a lot of them. Then you get to the actual subject matter itself. There's the end of the definitions. Then you can see it's paragraph numbering, and there are a lot of footnotes at the bottom, and it just runs all the way through, and you can see how detailed it is. For instance, this is looking at contract, insurance claims by cargo interests and so forth. It's a very, very important book, this one. I'm very glad that it's now come on the market. So what do we say about it? Well, Elizabeth and I wrote the review, and our book review title is the first treatise on air cargo insurance comprising property and liability cover. And that's exactly what you're getting with this book. So what do we say about it? Well, considering, as I mentioned earlier, that 30% of world trade, in terms of value, consists of goods transported by air, it's surprising to learn that according to the authors of this book, air cargo insurance is a subject neglected in insurance literature. This book, they say, aims to fill this gap by providing what they refer to as the first treatise on air cargo insurance, comprising property cover for cargo interests and liability cover for carriers. And that's exactly what they've done here, and very well indeed, if I may say so. So in today's business climate, when acquisition of overseas markets has become more of an imperative than ever, especially after Brexit, it becomes imperative too that practitioners in shipping and transport law add this book to their library collections, and I'm sure anybody involved in this area will find this absolutely a fundamental purchase. It's published by Informa Law from Routledge, as I've mentioned, part of the Taylor and Francis group, and the book functions as a much needed addition to Informa's Maritime and Transport Law Library, which has got about 40 or so volumes now in it. The book covers virtually every conceivable aspect of air cargo insurance, with the first chapter focusing on general principles, pointing out that the rule of law governing contracts of air cargo insurance is that which governs the formation of most other commercial contracts. So you're right at the cornerstone of contract law here. There are of course some obvious differences though, including primarily the relationship between air carriers and freight forwarders, who in most circumstances transport air cargo to and from airports is what is actually covered. It's interesting just to throw up the argument. I'm recording this in 2016, beginning of the 21st century effectively. I wonder what in 100 years' time we'll be talking about with cargo, because we could well be having certainly space cargo of some sort. And we could have interplanetary cargo, again in the realms of the future. But it's worth thinking about because you will have to have insurance cover for the products. So it's worth bearing in mind, and although I don't want to go that far just now. The second chapter gets down to specifics, which is what I'm trying to do, explaining that the very term air cargo insurance is an artificial one, being an anagram of property insurance and liability insurance. For those having only a passing familiarity with this area of law, this chapter comes up with a couple of surprises. One in particular is that air cargo insurance is not one of the priorities of the aviation insurance market. Interesting point. Apparently most regulators don't impose mandatory insurance requirements on either cargo interests or air carriers. The most notable exception is a specific European regulation which is analysed in considerable detail, and I wouldn't have thought that would be at this stage interfered with in any way in terms of English law. I may be wrong, but I doubt it very much. Let me go on, because subsequent chapters in the book cover respectively insurance claims by cargo interests, citing the Montreal Convention, liability insurance, air cargo liability insurance claims, and finally, right at the end, air cargo property claims. Again, each one very specific, and depending very much on what you are doing in terms of claims handling, I'm sure this book will be of absolute fundamental importance to your business. It's certainly a formidable work of scholarship in our view, and the two authors, Malcolm A. Clark and George Loulis, are to be congratulated because they together expressed the hope that it will be used as a springboard for further research on air cargo insurance, which unfortunately, according to the authors, is widely considered as a subspecies of marine insurance law. Now, I said before, and I'll say it again, I think we're on the dawn of a new era with a lot of this stuff as the 21st century unfolds, and this perhaps is the beginning, the forerunner, if you like, of a whole series of other types of insurance cover that will be needed in the next decades to come. Let me conclude by saying let's hope then that thanks to this book and related research, air cargo insurance will no longer be considered the poor relation of marine insurance law. In the meantime, researchers will value the book's copious footnoting and its inclusion of extensive tables and of legislation, directives and conventions. And of course they will change as and when we see changes in the next couple of years with Britain's changing role within Europe and the world. Ambitious shipping lawyers alert to change and wishing to extend their expertise into air cargo insurance, we think, will find this book invaluable. And the publication date is cited as at 2016. I'm recording this in the autumn of 2016. And certainly I think it's a book that's very interesting. Let me just show you. This is the middle of it. Insurance claims by cargo interests. There you go. Just to give you a classic feel for the book. You've got the paragraph numbering at the side, some subheads, and then you've got an awful lot of footnoting to justify. And a lot of the case law information is actually in the footnotes. Then at the back there's only a relatively short index that you can see there how it's structured, and I think the conclusion is well worth a read. Anyway, thank you both to Malcolm Clark and George Loulis, and to all at Informa for an excellent publication. I'm very pleased that this is an addition to the Maritime and Transport Library, and I'm sure it will be of great help to everybody practicing in those areas. Thank you very much to all concerned. Bye bye.